All the guys would be in the evening be talking in this. Mo would be out there hitting balls, hitting balls, hitting balls. And when you practice, you'd hit maybe 50, 60 balls. Mo would hit over 100 golf balls.
One thing that just is without question was that his ability to hit a golf ball and to hit it straight and to hit it with all the clubs, and he could regulate it. He could. You read the stories about him taking, let's say, a 4-iron, and he'd hit it 20 feet in the air straight. He'd hit it 40 feet. He could just make these minor adjustments. Probably was an innate talent, but it also came as a result of hitting countless golf balls, again, from what I hear, 500 minimum a day.
But no strain, no struggle, never get tired. Bring some more.
I'll bring another.
Hey, Mel, bring another. No, I'm just kidding. That's why I felt my day.
He loved people that worked hard at their game. I mean, he always talked about them. He always showed me his calluses on his hands and said, you know, that's what it takes to win. And he'd talk about young professionals, and he'd tell the difference. There could be two players that were sort of equal kind of talent and potential. And he'd say the ones that went to the range after the round and the ones that had the calluses in the hand, the ones that were going to be successful.
I think his ability to work at something that he believed in, that was his biggest asset. Like, you know, Hogan said at one time, they were at Oakland Hills, and somebody asked him, Ben, why are you so much better than us? And Ben said it simple. He said, hey, I'm working, you're watching. He said, if you work 3 hours, I'll work 4. And Mo Norman, nobody hit more balls than he did.
It wouldn't faze Mo to hit 800 balls a day. In fact, he used to come see me, and when he saw me, he would hit that many balls a day. And then I'd just give him a supper, and he would be happy. You know, so this guy enjoyed hitting golf balls. That was it. He enjoyed it.
Biomechanically, how he did it, I don't know. It's just that I think he had, whether it was his, whatever form of autism he had, whatever his personality type was, that enabled him to do the thing that people so often don't have the courage to do, which is to defy conventional wisdom and pursue something on your own. And I don't know whether it's because he invented something and then just worked at it hard enough that he made it work, or if he discovered something that you know, maybe everybody should be doing it that way.
I think what Mo Norman, above the swing and everything else and his oddities, if that's the right word, idiosyncrasies, all understandable, is that you can self-teach golf. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying here's Ben Hogan's book, hello. You can kind of learn it, be dedicated, make it work for you. Mo made his swing work for him and was impeccable with it. You can self-teach a wonderful game. I think we ought to thank Mo for that.
Oh, you hit a bad one. Hey, hit a bad one. I wish I would have been out of his trainer.
Canadian amateur champ Mo Norman. Mo, who has been compared with the great Walter Hagen for color, turned pro last spring. No one knows how good he may become.
Hey, he's a legend with the professionals.
It's just mind-boggling. It's as good as anyone has ever hit the golf ball.
Sometimes you have that feeling when you're about to see something that everybody's talked about. You'd think it can't be that good. He can't be that good.
He had to endure the scorn of other people.
They criticized him because of the way he functioned.
You should watch him hit a golf ball. It's freakish how good he is.
Expression of golf that no one has seen before.
He was just so odd. He was ostracized.
They would find ways to hurt Mo.
I'm the best striker the ball the world's ever known. Not by my say. I don't believe I am. All the best players and best teachers will say, who's the best striker the ball ever?
Mo had that feeling of greatness.
Maybe we ought to really know the full story.
I'm looking at this book here. It's Tim O'Connor's A Feeling of Greatness. It's the Mo Norman story. And I'm looking at Mo on the cover, and here he is. There's a Cadillac in the background, and he's hitting a driver off a Coke bottle. And he just reminds me of all these amazing stories about this character. And I mean, I'm extremely passionate about Mo. You know, my initial meeting of Mo was to become a better golfer. But then once you meet this character and you hear these stories about him, and you see this this incredible, not only golfer, but this interesting human being, you can't help but fall in love with him.
Yeah.
And then I can't think of a more interesting story than Mo Norman.
Well, and isn't that what we're after, really, in this documentary, is to find the great stories, condense them, and make sense of them. Because sometimes the stories compete, you know, they don't always necessarily agree with one another. But, and that's because they're outrageous. I mean, who hits golf balls out of off of Coke bottles except for Mo? And to me, see, you were into it for the golf. I didn't golf when I met Mo. The reason I met Mo was I saw this 1995 Golf Digest article that said Mo Norman, you know, knows what nobody else knows. And I opened it up and I'm reading it, and 2 sentences or paragraphs in, it says his friends call him the Rain Man of golf. Well, I did know something about Rain Man, having invented that one. And I thought, well, if this is a time for me to, you know, get into golf, let's do it through this character, Mo Norman. But by the time I was done with the article, I couldn't really believe he could be that good. I really thought people are just saying this because he's so eccentric and he's such an underdog. And then I find out, no, he is really as good as, when Tiger Woods says it, you gotta believe it. Yeah. And I was making documentaries. That's how I started as a storyteller, is with a 1972 60-pound reel-to-reel Sony Portapak was the first video. And you know, it's considered portable, but 60 pounds on your shoulder and a camera and a mic built in, black and white, of course. It was tough to really be, you know, a clandestine kind of a filmmaker. I mean, everybody saw you, the camera. But I started by finding interesting people just to put on tape. And when I saw their face in black and white on a television screen speaking, somehow it had more authority than just talking to them face to face. And as a sort of latent storyteller, I said, I've got to find a different way to tell stories, and I'm going to do it through video or film. And so here, 40 years later, Mo Norman, for me, is the greatest untold story.
Why do you think people, I mean, I have my interests in Mo Norman, obviously, but why do you think people find underdogs so interesting, and especially a character like Mo? Because I'm extremely passionate about, especially after I met Mo and spent time with him. I mean, there's the good and the bad side of everything, right? But why are people so? I mean, people are so interested in the underdog. And they root for the underdogs all the time. And you've dealt with that with the movies you've done and the documentaries you've done. And you specialize in these type of people. What do you see in that?
Well, my armchair psychoanalysis of this is that these people are generally suffering because of their uniqueness, whether it's a brain injury or a cleft palate or you're the elephant man, you know, you're suffering. And people are empathetic to pain, and they probably the worst scar you can get, you know, through the suffering inflicted on you, to me, is humiliation.
Emotional pain.
Yeah, and when I give screenwriting classes in China, for instance, I asked people. I said, tell me the most memorable, fantastic day you've ever had in your life. And there's so many kind of, I mean, you can see that they're all, if I say, give me an example of your greatest humiliation, every hand goes up right away. People remember those things.
Those moments.
Those moments, because those scars don't heal. A guy like Mo Norman got a collection of these scars. Every day he wakes up, he faces people who, you think you can golf like that, The professional's view of Mo as he was trying to become good was that he was pathetic and a joke.
Yeah.
And when you see that injustice, it reminds you of your own pain, and I think that's why we like the underdog.
Well, and I think the story about Mo too, in that sense, is golf is the ultimate, is known as the ultimate elitist sport. And when Mo, especially when Mo played,
a certain feel and look that you got to present yourself as, which was not Mo in any.
Well, and back in the day, especially when Mo was playing, there wasn't the money that the tour, there wasn't the prestige the tour has now. It was really a close-knit fraternity of golfers that kind of revered themselves as, we're this elite group of players, and you have to hold yourself to a certain standard. And Mo didn't fit into any of that. Mm-hmm. And that is part of the pain that Mo, he is playing a game that he absolutely loves. That's his only identity, really, was the game of golf, and he's finding pain in that as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's why he really didn't play much on the PGA Tours, because he found pain there as well, everywhere he went, if people didn't accept him.
It was a hot summer's day, and there's this guy just batting balls out there, rat-a-tat-tat, out into the night sky, and every one was just a bullet going out there dead straight. And I was 12, 13 years old, so I asked my dad, "Who's that?" And he said, "That's Mo Norman." And I said, "Really? He really just hits the ball so differently." Even then I knew a little bit about golf and traditional swings, and his was so beyond the traditional that even if you didn't know much about golf, you knew that this was very strange and unusual, and yet it was so effective. So my dad told me a bit about him, and he said that, the thing is with Mo, a lot of people laugh at him because he does it so differently. I mean, you look at him here, it's a hot night, he's wearing a turtleneck, he's wearing slacks that don't come down to his shoes properly, and when you hear him talk, you'll hear him repeat himself. So a lot of people just laugh when they see Mo. My dad said he's known as one of the best ball strikers in the game. My dad liked golf, and just look at the way he hits the ball. I don't know why people can't look past that. But right from that moment, I became fascinated with him, and I became fascinated with you might say, the unusual and the extreme in human behavior, and certainly in golf. And I think to that experience with Mo, I can sort of trace my own fascination with the golf swing and of how to hit the golf ball. And it really started right there.
Sometimes you have that feeling when you're about to see something that everybody's talked about, and people talked about the way Mo Norman hit the golf ball, and you'd think it can't be that good. He can't be that good. And then we went out to this place, a club near Orlando, and he was hitting drivers right off the grass to a little patch out there, 225, 230 yards. And you think, my God, he really can do that.
The best story I got was from Ken Venturi. And Venturi knew his golfers. He was a very close friend of Ben Hogan's, and he'd played with him since Venturi was a little kid. And I said, "Who do you think was the best ball striker? Was Mo in league with Hogan?" He said, "Well, in fact, you could argue that Mo was a better ball striker than Hogan." He said that Hogan was a static shot maker. He just hit that little fade all the time, but Mo could do whatever he wanted with the golf ball. So Venturi said, "Yeah, Mo Norman, best ball striker who ever lived."
See, one of the strange things too is Hogan at one time said that if you hit a straight shot, it's an accident, right? So of course Mo picks up on that. He said, "Whoo, every time I hit, it's an accident. Every time I hit, it's an accident." Because Mo never curved it, right? It was always dead straight with every golf club. He turns to me and he folds his arms like he's holding himself together, waiting for my response to Hogan's move. I said, "Mo, that looks more like Louise Suggs to me than Ben Hogan." Well, that is not what he expected to hear, right? That is the fastest 100 yards I ever ran in my life. 'Cause he would have killed me at that time. But a day later, when I wasn't paying attention, he sneaks up behind you, grabs me, hugs me, kisses me on the cheek and pinching. I'll give you Louise Suggs, eh? Louise Suggs. And he was laughing and giggling and loving every minute of it, you know?
And I remember driving in the highway, and you're just above the parking lot where we turned in. And I could see a trunk, the Cadillac, I could see the trunk open and the Titleist bag sitting over on the side, and kind of about 10, 15 people kind of standing around. And I'm like, well, he showed up, right? I said, that's awesome, right? So I went over and I thanked Marcy. I said, Mikey, you have no idea how good this moment is, right? I said, this is where he needs to be, and this is awesome. And, you know, tell Gus, thanks a lot. Not 5 minutes later, he's handing out clubs to my nieces and nephews, and here are the kids screaming golf balls in the parking lot, hitting cars with golf balls on a gravel driveway with his clubs. And I'm like, Mo, the kids are gonna wreck your clubs. He says, don't worry about it. He goes, I get them given to me anyway. He says, no. He goes, look at them, they're having fun. I said, well, they're having fun. I said, yeah, there's a few cars just got hit. And he's like, as long as they don't hit this one. He goes.
Gus and Audrey just, it was wonderful that they were there to take care of Mo, and I know he really appreciated it.
I was very lucky that they were there.
And Ernie Hauser was another person involved. But see, that comes from the days they all grew up together, and Gus and Ernie. And Mo was fortunate to have that. And as Mo's life got a little more difficult and his health was going down, you know, he needed that help, and there couldn't be a better group of people that helped Mo that way.
Every time I think about it, you know, he said to me 2 days before he died, been nice knowing you. And I still can see him sitting there. But we all knew he wasn't healthy, and he was probably not going to last that long. I mean, his lifestyle wasn't conducive to rehabilitation. But I remember him walking out of the golf course at Rockaway, and he was sitting on a cart, and he said, been nice knowing you. And one thing with Mo he never did was ever say goodbye. Never. You'd be with him, he'd be in the pro shop, he'd be sitting there for 3 hours. You'd go out to just see somebody coming off the 18th green, you come in, he was gone. He always just sort of wandered away, you know. So for him to say to me, been nice knowing you, you knew that he must have known that it was close.
I've never met anybody odder. Never had a credit card, never had a checking account, never, you know, he didn't know how to do anything except buy cash. And he didn't have any social graces because he'd never learned any.
He was shy, he was a loner. He seemed much more
withdrawn, much more alone than he did before, kind of a pathological level.
His parents weren't wealthy, or they weren't even middle class. It was a poor home, and his parents didn't want to have anything to do with golf.
I think he wanted to be the best at something, and I think hitting a golf ball was it.
Golf was a refuge for him. Through golf, he just found this place of serenity and peace.
You imagine you're a kid back in Kitchener, and you're setting pins in a bowling alley, and you've just won the Canadian Amateur. And one night he comes home and there's this invitation to the Masters. The night before the first round, Snead offers him some advice.
That was sad. That was Sam Snead giving me golf lessons. And I stayed out there all night hitting balls.
It's 800 golf balls that night. His hands get raw, so he's got to tee it up the next day in the Masters with basically raw hands.
The gloves filled with blood, and he couldn't grip the club.
And after 9 or 10 holes, his hands were just too raw for him to continue.
Good thinking, good golf. Bad thinking, bad golf. That simple. I'm the best striker the ball the world's ever known. Not by my say. I don't believe I am. All the best players and best teachers will say, who's the best striker the ball ever?
Wherever he went to a tournament, whether it was Faldo, Crenshaw, couples, they certainly would stop and could watch him hit balls.
Because Mo never curved it, right? It was always dead straight with every golf club.
Never offline. This swing can't hit a crooked.
Fred Couples was watching him on the Tuesday of the Canadian Open. Couples had played 18 holes in practice already, had no intention of going out and playing again. Then he watched Mo. He just looked at his caddy and he says, Joe, he says, I'm so jacked up after seeing this guy hit golf balls. Let's go play another 9 holes.
Sometimes you have that feeling when you're about to see something that everybody's talked about, and people talked about the way Mo Norman hit the golf ball.
Wherever I want to go every time.
You'd think it can't be that good. He can't be that good.
It's hard to describe how good it really was. I'd seen a lot of great ball strikers. The best guys in the world I've played golf with.
The purity of technique is choking me. Oh yes, I always see it, but I taste it too. I could taste that before I hit it. Look.
You should watch him hit a golf ball. It's freakish how good he is.
His golf swing, he thoroughly owned it. I believe it is the most efficient, simple way to hit a golf ball ever devised.
You use the same tee the whole time, don't you? It's 7 years old. Never moved.
Our story about Mo Norman is not a story of golf. It's a story of a man. It's a character drama. It's an underdog story. It's about somebody who should have never succeeded, but did.
I did it my way, and I'm not ashamed one bit.